Alright, so today we're going to be doing notes on proportions. There are a couple vocabulary words before we start doing these. So vocabulary, a ratio is a comparison between two quantities. Here's our first example. 12 girls and 15 boys in the class. So I'm going to color code these just so you can see. We've got 12 girls, okay, to 15 boys in class. And here it's asking me for the ratio of girls to boys. So my boys was pink, my girls was blue. So to write this three different ways. You can write this as a fraction. So this would be 12 girls, 15 boys. You can write it with a colon, 12 to 15. Again, this is girls and this is boys. Or you can write it just as 12 to 15. Again, this being girls and that being boys. So notice they're all in the same order here. It's asked me girls to boys, so I always have girls first. Let's look at the next one. My next vocabulary word here is what we're talking about today, proportion. A proportion is a ratio where two ratios are equal. A proportion is two ratios that are equal. Okay? Two ratios that are equal. This is how we check to see if they're equal, because if they're equal, it is a proportion. To check if they are equal, you're going to cross multiply. Next, you're going to see if you get the same answer, because that means the ratios are equal. So if you get the same answer, they're equal. You may have done this last year, and your teacher might have called it the butterfly effect. Okay, the butterfly. So what I did here is I've got crossing my multiply. So I put a circle here, 9 times 1 equals 9. And my other cross here, 3 times 3 equals 9. If they're equal, then it is a proportion. So here, 9 equals 9, that's a proportion. So let's look at our two examples here. I'm going to cross them. Okay. 3 times 4 is 12. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 equals 12, so that is a proportion. Two ratios that are equal. This non-example, 10 times 10 is 100. 8 times 14, that's 105? No, 112. 112. Those two are not equal, which means this is not a proportion. So let's look at example 1. Example 1 says, which of the following is not a proportion? So when I cross these, I'm looking for the ones where the answers don't match. 6 times 1 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 equals 6, that's a proportion. So it's not my answer. 25 times 1 is 25. 5 times 5 is 25. 25 equals 25, that's a proportion. 20 times 3 is 60. 12 times 5 is also 60. 60 equals 60, that's a proportion. The last one here, 20 times 3 is 60. 15 times 5 is 75. 75 and 60 are not equal. So here's my answer, because that is not a proportion. Let's go ahead and turn on to the back. We're going to solve for proportions where I only have 3 numbers instead of 4. So how do you solve a proportion? To find the missing term, you're going to use that butterfly or cross multiply. You're going to solve the equation by dividing. So you should have done one-step equations last year in 6th grade. That's all this is. We're setting up a one-step equation, and then you're going to solve it. Okay, so let's look at this first one. A over 25 equals 52 over 100. So I'm going to cross that. Okay, I'm going to say 25 times 52, that's 1,300. 100 times a, this is the easy part. It's just 100a. When there's no operation in between here, it means multiply. When the number and the letter are right next to each other, this coefficient multiplied by the variable. 100 times a. So I'm going to make that my equation. 100a equals 1,300. Now to solve this one-step equation, I want the 100 all by itself. I want it to get away from a so that a is by itself, and I can say a equals blank. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have to divide to get rid of that 100. It's multiplied here, right? That's an invisible multiplication. So to get rid of it, I do the opposite. The opposite of multiplication is division. 100 divided by 100 is just 1. So just 1a. I don't have to write that 1 coefficient. It's understood that that's just 1a. And then I do 1,300 divided by 100. I could get rid of my zeros here. 13 over 1 is 13. 13. Okay, now you can check this answer. It's actually really cool. You can check this answer. So I could go back and check my answer. This is how you would do it. I would do 13, putting it in for a back here. So I'd have 13 over 25 equals 52 over 100. Now across these, I'm going to get that 1,300 that I got initially over here. When I cross 13 times 100, I'm also going to get the 1,300, telling me that that is true. Alright, so let's look at the U tries. 15 times c, that's 15c. 9 times 36, that's 324. So I've got 15c equals 324. Again, I'm dividing by what's stuck to the variable so I can get rid of it. So this is divided by 15. My c is equal to 21.6. Let's look at the next one. 7 times m is just 7m. 10 times 10.5 is 105. Again, dividing by my coefficient that's stuck to the variable there, so I'm dividing by 7. 7's crossed out. M is equal to 15. Last one. Negative 5 times 9 is negative 45. And I'm going to set that equal to 15 times w, which I know would just be 15w. Dividing by what's next to the variable, that's 15. 15's crossed out. W is equal to negative 3. Now those aren't too hard. The only place that it gets a little bit trickier is when we come down here to word problems and scale problems. But it's really the exact same thing. We're just adding some real life situations here. So the most important thing when you're doing these word problems is that you make sure that those units match. So by units, I mean whatever you're talking about. Cups, miles, hours, minutes, feet, inches, seconds, whatever it is that we're talking about, they have to match. So here's how it works. I'm going to show you how they match. In this example, I've got 5 miles and 10 miles, and then I've got 2 hours and 4 hours. Do we see how those match? I've got my miles across the top and my hours across the bottom. Here's the other way you can set it up, because there are actually 2 ways. 5 miles, 10 miles, 2 hours, 4 hours. So you can set it up going across with the unit or up and down with the unit, as long as they're matching. So I'm going to show you why this works. Okay? And this is why this works. If I cross this, 2 times 10 is 20. 5 times 4 is also 20. That's true. If I cross it this way, still 10 times 2 is 20. And 5 times 4 is 20. So it doesn't matter which way you set it up as long as your units match. Very important that your units match. So let's look at the next one. You're welcome to use highlighters on this. Sometimes I like to do underline and box. Anything you need to do to show that those units are different. So if I look at this, 18 cups, 3 dozen equals 9 cups in blank dozen. I see my units there. I see the numbers. You can look for those numbers. I see an 18, a 3, and a 9. So 18 goes with cups. I'm going to make cups pink. 3 goes with dozen. That's going to have to be a different color because that's a different unit. And then I've got 9 cups again. Cups was pink, so again I'm going to make it pink. And then I've got blank dozen. And this is where I'd find my variable, because that would be the x. Okay, so let's set it up. I'm going to use C and D. So cups, dozen, cups, dozen. Okay, do we see how that worked? So what I did here is I put my units going across the top. They're the pink ones, the cups, and the blue is the dozens. Okay, so now I'm going to put them in. When they're next to each other, they're in the same sentence, so to speak. These two go together. So that means 18 cups to 3 dozen is one ratio. These two go together. 9 cups to X dozen. There's my second ratio. Okay, and again, we're just cross multiplying this, and we're going to solve it just like we solved them up here. So I'm going to take 3 times 9, which is 27, and set that equal to 18 times x, which is x. Dividing by the 18 as it's stuck to the variable. And I'm going to get x equals 1.5. Okay. Let's look at the next one. So same thing. I'm going to look for my units. So I've got blank miles in an hour, 9 miles in 5 minutes. Okay. So I notice I've got 2 miles, blank miles, and 9 miles, and then I've got hours and minutes. These two units do not match. So the first thing I need to do is I need to figure out which one I can make them both. The easiest way is I'm going to keep the smaller unit, that minutes, and I'm going to figure out how many minutes are in an hour. Well, I know that 60 minutes equal 1 hour. So I'm going to cross that off. It still stayed the same thing, right? Saying 1 hour and 60 minutes is the same thing, but now my units match. That's the important part here. Now my units match. So I can do miles to minutes equals miles to minutes. Okay? So I've got blank miles, that's my x. X miles to 60 minutes equals 9 miles to 5 minutes. Again, this time I've got the blue on top, the miles, and then here are my minutes. And I'm going to solve it the same way by crossing it. 60 times 9 is 540. And I set that equal to 5 times x, which is 5x. Dividing by 5 because it is stuck to the x. X is equal to 108. When you write your answer, you do need to write x is equal to 108. The answer is not 108. You have to have your variable there. Okay? To solve a scale problem, make the scale your first proportion. So what we mean there is this first thing they give you, that scale, is going to be that first ratio. So let's look at this one. Chris is looking at the following scale picture of the White House. The scale of the drawing is 3/4 inches, there's a unit, equals 36 feet. How tall is the actual White House in feet? And here's my picture saying that it's 3.5 inches. Whoops, I think I did that a little backwards. This should be pink. And my inches was blue. That's why you need to be careful here. So inches, inches, feet, feet. Now, I've got 3/4. Can I do this and have a double-decker fraction? No way. No way. No double-deckers here. So 3/4 I know is 0.75. I'm going to have to put decimals in my proportion. 0.75 is 36 feet. So there's my scale that I made my first ratio in the proportion. Now I have 3.5, so that's 3.5. in x feet. So now I'm going to go ahead and cross that. 3.5 times 36 is 126, and that is equal to 0.75x. Dividing by that 0.75, they cross out, and x is equal to 168. Okay, so again, these are the notes on proportions and how to solve them. Okay, you're welcome to go back to the video at any time and pause. Thanks for watching.